Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Mrs. H, and this week we're going to read a story about the armor of God. In fact, we're going to read two stories about the armor of God. One of them might seem like it's a little bit better for elementary kids, and the second one might feel a little bit better for preschool kids. So before we do that, if you've got wiggles, you better join me in getting your wiggles out. I wiggle my fingers, and I wiggle my toes. I wiggle my shoulders, and I wiggle my nose. Now there's no more wiggles left in me, so I'll sit as quiet can be. Time to listen.
God Has Power by Corrine McKenzie. God has power. He made the whole world. It's in the Bible. In Genesis 1:1 it tells us, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." God has power. He makes the sun rise in the morning and set in the evening. It's in the Bible. Matthew 5:45 tells us that God makes his sun rise on the evil and the good. God sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. God has power. He can make the wind blow very hard. He can make the wind blow gently. It's in the Bible. Luke 8:24 tells us, Jesus got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters, and all was calm. God has power. He can make the sea rough and stormy. He can make the sea smooth and calm. It's in the Bible. Matthew 8:27 tells us, the men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." God has power. He made all the animals. Some are big and some are small. It's in the Bible. Genesis 1:24 tells us, "And God said, let the land produce living creatures that move along the ground and wild animals." God has power. He gives us life and breath. He has power to forgive us when we do wrong. It's in the Bible. Matthew 9:6 tells us, the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. God has power. Today we're reading a story from It's All About Jesus Bible Storybook. Our story is the armor of God. It's taken from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 19. Be strong. God is strong, and he will give you strength. Paul wrote these words in a letter to the church at Ephesus. Paul was in prison in Rome, and he knew being a Christian was not an easy life. In fact, it is like a battle. The battle is difficult, and it is not a battle against other people. The battle is against evil. Paul told believers how to fight. He said, "Put on the full armor of God. It will help you stand up against the devil who is trying to trick you. Put on God's armor and be ready." Paul said that God gives us what we need to stand strong against evil. Evil is strong, but God is stronger. He explained what God's armor is. Paul said, truth is like a belt around your waist. We know what is true because God has told us about himself in his word. Paul said righteousness is like armor on your chest. God gives us righteousness when we trust in Jesus. Jesus takes away our sin and makes us right with God. Paul said, be ready with the gospel, like sandals on your feet. What God has done for us in Jesus is good news. We must always be ready to tell others the gospel. Paul said, no matter where you go, take faith, which is like a shield. It will help protect you from the evil one's attacks. The devil wants us to doubt God or believe what is not true. God gives us faith to help us trust in him. Paul said, salvation is like your helmet, and God's word is like your sword. A helmet protects your head. We should remember that God has saved us. God has also given us his word, the Bible. The Bible tells us what is true. Jesus defeated Satan when he died on the cross and rose again. Then Paul said, pray. Don't give up praying for God's people. Pray for me too. Pray that God will help me be bold when I share the good news about Jesus. We can remember that Paul told believers to be ready to fight a spiritual battle. People and powers who are against God will be against us too. But Jesus died and rose from the dead. He had victory over evil. We can fight the battle against evil, knowing Jesus already won the war. Let me ask you a question. How does knowing that Jesus already won the battle against evil help you fight? That's a good question to talk about with your parents today, boys and girls. See you next week.